Greetings and welcome to Love and Justice. I'm Kyle Olson. On today's episode, we're asking two key questions. Who was Andrew Wieman? And what was happening in the weeks leading up to his death? Because the truth about what happened often lives in the details of a person's life. Who they were, what they cared about, how they showed up in the world. Those details matter, and they act as data and evidence. In this episode, you'll hear directly from the people who knew Andrew, friends, family, and those closest to him, as we build a clearer picture of who he was. Then, we'll walk through the final weeks of Andrew's life. My first interview this season was with Andrew's parents, Wes and Jan, and it's a fitting place for us to start.
He was a stargazer. As a young kid, he was always looking up.
Andrew was one of those unique individuals that had the ability to pretty much get along with everybody. He was a conflict manager in high school. He stopped a lot of problems in school and also was a good counselor. He had good, thoughtful answers for some of the people that were coming to him with problems. He liked to have fun. He liked to enjoy life. And he was also very thoughtful, though. He was compassionate, which was kind of an interesting combination, I thought, in his personality. I think his personality was just so winning. He drew people into the circle if they were maybe on the outside, or if somebody that he knew was just looking down, he made it a point to reach out to them. He was very accepting of people, I think.
To be a good friend to everybody. And he pretty much was. I can't think of him talking about enemies at all.
Andrew was super fun, super outgoing, super personable. He was just a hoot. He was a lot of fun. I mean, as a little kid, we terrorized the church. It was a blast. He was so easy to be a friend with. So you didn't have to pry things out of him. He always on to the next thing, on to the next thing. We weren't jumping into the baptismal. We were trying to sneak into the attic of the church. Our parents were both very heavily involved in the church. And so we lived at the church 3 to 4 days a week. So we were always together when we were little. Everybody loved Andrew. He didn't have enemies. The man didn't have enemies. It was just fun. Fun, all the time.
He was an extrovert, always had an appetite for adventure, curious. Yeah, he was on the soccer team. He was a popular kid. He was nice and funny and good looking, and it's kind of a rubber stamp for popularity. He didn't have to drive a truck or be an asshole to be popular. Yeah, you just had to be kind of funny and kind, and Andrew was all of those things.
Perhaps the biggest thing that stood out to everyone who shared stories about Andrew was his sense of humor.
He was a goofball, very smart. I always knew that he was like an honor roll student. What you see is what you get with Andrew. He was a super goofball. Just if you were to do a pep rally, he'd be out there with a pom-pom. He was very outgoing and excited and loved to do things that probably most guys would not do. He'd put on face paint and tutus and random clothes. And, he just loved to be a character. I think he was just a character, and I don't think he changed for anybody. I think at church it was the same. He was the same with my family. He was the same with his friends. So just outgoing, charismatic, very goofy. Always had weird mannerisms and goofy sayings and things.
Andrew had this persona that he would put on, this alias that he would call the funny duck. And it would crack me up. It would crack everybody up. He had blonde hair, and he had this little tuft of blonde hair right here. And his body, he kind of had narrow shoulders and not wide hips, but he was kind of duck-shaped. And he would put on this persona of what he called the funny duck, and he would walk around with his head bobbing and going, duck, 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 duck. And it was the funniest shit any of us had ever seen. And so, yeah, he earned the nickname Funny Duck.
The Funny Duck was a character that Andrew developed and, would often show up when they were out and about. He had a gravitational pull of a personality. Like, you wanted to be around Andrew. He was hilarious. You'd be in a shitty situation and, he would make a joke and it would just be fun. Was pretty much fluent in Spanish. Through our trips to Mexico with our church, we go down and, help them build their church or build houses or do whatever they needed. And I know that was something that he really loved to do.
He loved Mexico. He loved going down there and building churches, and he just loved that. He just got real serious about trying to help. He was just so good down there, man. He loved it. And he would go down there and you would see the best version. I mean, he was always great. There really aren't any bad stories about Andrew, but everybody's got their best version of themselves. When you go to Mexico, that was like his best version, helping people, communicating. I mean, he spoke Spanish almost fluently with barely taking it in school.
Andrew wasn't just known for his sense of humor or bilingual abilities. Friends and family described him as someone who was genuinely gifted in every sense of the word.
He was an excellent student. He loved to read. He was always on the honor roll, spoke 2 languages, loved to be challenged, and did quite well in school. Straight A's through high school.
He liked winter sports.
Mm-hmm. He liked to ski.
He liked to golf. We had played golf. He got frustrated with golf because Dad was better and he always lost a lot of golf balls, and that was upsetting.
Andrew was an excellent piano student. He told me at one point, I think he was about 13 or 14, Mom, being able to play the piano is a chick magnet. That isn't really something that a mother wanted to hear, but it's okay. I mean, it's all right because he was very, very good at what he did.
He was trained on Suzuki piano, which is hearing first. In the end, when he got fluent, he could compose his own music.
He liked to play hacky sack, and he was competitive.
We were sports guys, played on the soccer team, sang in the it wasn't a choir, it was above the choir. There was choir, and then there was limited edition. And then we freaking went to church too.
Whenever I speak with people about Andrew, his steadfast faith is always mentioned. I noticed it within minutes of meeting the Wieman family in person for the first time. Their faith is deeply rooted, and it's clear that Andrew carried that same foundation with him.
Yeah, I mean, he grew up in the church. He talked about it often. He was not ashamed of it. He was very proud of being religious. He went on, like I said, those trips. I think it was around spring break every year. He would go down on mission trips, essentially, like where they go to Mexico and I think build homes and help people in certain areas. And he went on multiple trips like that. And he was just very involved throughout his whole life in church. He definitely was vocal about, when we first met, not having sex. I mean, it was definitely something that he wanted to save. I don't know how realistic that was, but that was his goal, right? Like that's what he wanted. So he tried to be the best Christian he could be with the crazy fun that he wanted to have in life, He really did, morally had a great compass. I think he did try to live morally by the rule of the Bible, and he definitely thought that way.
While Andrew tried to live a good and honest life, friends also described him as someone who had a bit of a wilder side at times, too.
But Andrew was also lacked common sense sometimes, which always made us wonder, how could you be so smart with his grades being excellent?
I always said he has school smarts, but not street smarts, because he'd go do stupid things like drive crazy or drive through the mud and flip a golf cart over. I'm like, that wasn't safe or smart, but that's what boys do in high school. I mean, sometimes it was attractive. I would say for the most part, it was just like a little shocking. For example, I had a cabin in Trinity, and at the time the lake was full, and he and one of his good friends decided to jump off the bridge, and I thought, oh God, how do you know if the water's deep enough? Like, what are you doing?
Then the time that we got home and looked at the garage, and there was this white powder all over the garage. And I asked the boys, what is this white powder all over the garage? Well, come to find out, they were taking Lysol cans and lighting them and shooting the flames from the Lysol cans all over the garage. Not knowing that people that do that can blow up the can and blow up themselves,
I think we inspired Jackass because we were pre-Jackass. These videos we would create would be half skateboarding or snowboarding, and then half just kind of silly pranks or dressing up like a gorilla and running through the halls of Eureka High. Or there was a snowboarding mountain, 45 minutes away, and we'd go up there all the time. We'd build jumps and we'd light them on fire. We'd bring rails out there and do these rail tricks and light them on fire. We were always like jumping off houses and wrapping ourselves in bubble tape and seeing if we could jump off a 2-story house into a tree, and then we would ultimately fall out of the tree and bounce against the rocks, but we never got hurt.
One night, I heard a little bit outside the bedroom, but then when I looked out the window, there were flames in our front yard. And it's like, what are you doing? I think they had, what had they written out with the wood? They put some wood out there and lit it on fire.
I think it was flame.
I think it was flame.
And it was supposed to be gasoline poured on all the 2x4s that spelled out flame, and light it, and it would look like word flame on the ground, but he didn't realize that, gasoline doesn't stay just on the 2x4. It was just a big poof, and flames going everywhere.
He just did things his own way all the time, and like really no apology, or he'd look back on it, oh yeah, that was probably not that smart, but this is Andrew, just how he was. He was just, I feel like he lived life to its fullest, truthfully. He left no stone unturned. He tried it all, not in terms of like, oh, he didn't go try all the drugs and alcohol, but like he tried all the things in terms of like ridiculous stunts and things that maybe you would do that most people wouldn't do, like being out in the snow and not wearing appropriate clothing or no clothing at all. You know what I mean?
He would like to get into trouble, but not like bad trouble. I mean, we just, oh man, the things we did were run around town videotaping. Like we went to San Francisco one weekend, right? Our friend Ryan had these crazy ideas with video cameras. Like we'd skateboard down Lombard Hill with a flame helmet on. And Ryan made these movies called Fire and Ice. And here I am in my underwear wearing the flame helmet in a tree on Lombard Hill in San Francisco. And they're posted up on a house across the street. And all these tourists, mind you, mostly Asian, non-English speaking people. And I come dropping out of this tree with a flame helmet and underwear, screaming belligerently and like running, right? And all Ryan and Andrew are trying to do are get the reaction of the people. I mean, just, that's the stupid stuff we did all the time. We weren't doing drugs and getting drunk every night, you know what I mean? It was more about how can we do something hilarious and videotape it.
I've tried to always choose friends around, are you a yes person or are you a no person? Do you like to have fun? Do you like to live on the edge a little bit? Do you crave excitement and adventure? And Andrew was always first in line. He was down for silly. He was down for fun. He was down to have a good time. And so, he was my right-hand man a lot of the time. We just had a great time. He was a light in a dark room. He was a beacon of joy. He brought kindness and love and joy to everyone that he met. He was a gift. Sometimes the good die young, and he was a good person and a good man.
When Andrew ultimately left Eureka for UC Davis, he surprised many in his life when they learned that he was joining a fraternity.
I remember him telling me he was going to join a frat, and I said, that's a bad idea. Like, that's just not what you need. He's already the life of the party. He's already super fun. He had a new girlfriend, and I was like, you don't need to do that. I understand it a little bit more now with my daughter being there for 4 years, that it's just kind of those things when you're lonely.
Was Andrew lonely?
Well, I mean, I'm saying, like, when you're away from your family, there's going to be moments every day. Most kids try to join these clubs, and
It's something to do? Is that kind of the rationale?
exactly, fill time, all this stuff. And I think that was his way of like, oh, I'm going to become part of this. That'll give me a purpose in my off time, because he was very driven, super driven. You weren't going to catch Andrew just sitting around doing nothing.
Andrew joined the Kappa Sigma fraternity his freshman year at UC Davis. By his junior year, his brothers trusted him with the finances, collecting monthly dues, managing the house budget, and keeping the books. That year would turn out to be his last. Which brings us to December of 2000. From approximately December 14th through December 30th in the year 2000, Andrew spent his winter break at home in Eureka, California, after returning from school at UC Davis.
But he wasn't feeling great. I mean, who does when they've had strep throat? Still, like, I mean, was he himself when he came home? Probably not in his entirety. Who's when they're sick, you know, and they're not feeling good and had to go on antibiotics, and strep throat sucks.
Well, Andrew came home sick for Christmas break, and so he wasn't feeling great initially, but we got him on the necessary antibiotics to get rid of whatever it was he had. You know, then we enjoyed Christmas.
Andrew stayed active and engaged during the holiday season. He attended a wedding, spent time with family, played golf with his dad, and participated in numerous social gatherings.
I saw him at a party. I remember I walked up and I gave him a hug. I hadn't seen him in a while. Like I said, he was quiet, but I knew he had been sick. And it wasn't like we didn't do a ton of talking. It was just more of like, hey, how you doing? Hug. It's nice to see you. We can, like, a quick conversation about it. And like, you know, and then he went off for New Year's with his buddies to Tahoe. So, I mean, it just seemed very natural. It didn't seem super out of sorts. Like I said, it just seemed like he was just a little bit down or a little bit under the weather, I guess.
By all accounts, from the people we've talked to and the records we've read, it seems like Andrew was prepared for what was ahead in the new year. We heard stories about how Andrew went shopping with his brother Daniel, where he bought new clothes and 3 pairs of shoes, and even applied water repellent to his interview dress shoes, suggesting attention to detail for upcoming interviews or future steps. During a larger family gathering, some accounts suggest Andrew engaged in heavier, more serious conversations, with an undercurrent of pressure surrounding his future and decision-making.
There were serious conversations, and I don't know if life was very heavy at that time, but I'm sure there were some heavy moments. I think we were both like that. I think there was a common thread there. You know, in public, we were both kind of silly and extroverted, and one-on-one or in small groups, you know, we'd recharge our batteries and have thoughtful conversations.
Our team obtained multiple emails that Andrew sent to friends saying that he was, quote, done or over partying and smoking. We know that this idea of partying was weighing heavy on Andrew during his college experience. During a separate conversation with his college girlfriend, Andrew told her, quote, I'm so sick of drinking and smoking. Was this just a figure of speech? Something many people have said after a night of rough partying while being hungover. Or was this something that was truly weighing heavily on Andrew? And if so, why?
I'm ashamed to say the last time I spoke with Andrew, I was a little bit upset with him because him and his buddies, you know, came home to our parents' house, and they're pretty snockered, you know, like 2 o'clock in the morning. I think I recall him coming in and like laying down next to me and be like, Daniel, what are you doing? I'm like, dude, I'm trying to freaking sleep right now, man. I got to work in the morning, so I was a little bent on that. Makes me feel a little guilty knowing that was like the last time I would see him.
Andrew left Eureka on December 30th, 2000 to return to UC Davis to prepare for his New Year's Eve plans. Andrew's trip to Lake Tahoe for New Year's Eve appears to have been a loosely coordinated but familiar tradition among friends. Ryan Dexter, one of Andrew's closest childhood friends, went to Tahoe with Andrew for what would be his final New Year's celebration. He shared with us what he remembers.
For a number of years, I don't know if they still do this, in South Lake Tahoe, they would block off the streets near the casinos, and it would be this all-night kind of street party where thousands of college kids from all over California and probably Nevada would come and bring in the new year. It's cold, everyone's dressed up, and the antics are wild. You see like college kids taking their shirts off and climbing up, light poles with bottles of champagne, and everybody's like, oh, is he gonna drop to his death? I don't know. It was a wild college party scene, and we had so much fun the year before that I wanted to go back and did a little planning with Andrew, and he's like, oh yeah, me and some of my frat buddies or Davis friends, we got a hotel room, it's gonna be perfect.
On December 31st, 2000, Andrew left midday from the Davis area in a car driven by a fraternity brother, traveling alongside his close friend from home, Ryan Dexter, and at least one other fraternity member. Other friends made their way up to Tahoe separately, with several only reconnecting with Andrew later that night in Tahoe rather than traveling with him directly. The trip itself was not centered on a single group or plan, but rather a network of overlapping friendships converging in the same place for the holiday.
Yeah, we arrived on New Year's Eve, and there's like, I forget how many guys, 8, 10, 12 guys, Davis guys. We find the hotel, and it's just like this real cheap, shitty little hotel room, 1 bedroom, 1 bed situation, and I'm like, oh, fuck, where's everybody gonna sleep? I think there was probably some cheap vodka and some mixers, and we were 20 years old at the time, so nobody knows where the booze came from. We're drinking cheap booze, we're putting on our sparkly hats and getting ready to go out, and we pre-partied and then just went out in the streets. I myself at least was heavily intoxicated, so it's not all sharp and crystal clear.
Reports show that Andrew was described consistently as acting like himself. He was engaged, social, and enjoying the environment. At some point, he and Ryan Dexter went out to the Strip earlier than the others, likely around 8 or 9 p.m. They gathered the rest of the group later on and headed back out for more partying. As the night progressed, the group fragmented in typical New Year's fashion. People split up, reconnected, and moved between locations, making Andrew's exact movements difficult to track continuously. Several individuals only saw Andrew briefly. One friend encountered him for about 15 minutes around 11 p.m. and thought that he might have seemed slightly more mellow than usual, though nothing concerning stood out. Another ran into him around midnight, spent 20 minutes with him, and described him as normal and having a good time. Perhaps more interestingly, Andrew's college girlfriend was also present at the festivities in Tahoe, but we have found no reports to corroborate that the two ever spent any time together on New Year's Eve. Alcohol was present throughout the night, though accounts suggest that Andrew was not among the most intoxicated, with some noting that others were drinking much more heavily than he was. No one reported any arguments, altercations, or incidents involving Andrew.
We were just running around meeting other college kids, flirting with girls, and I don't really, remember exactly what you do in those scenarios. You kind of come across other kids from other colleges that you know, and you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen you, since this time or that time, and there's not a lot to tell. But we had fun, and at the end of the night, we all kind of crashed in that one room. I think I was maybe at the edge of the bed, laying on like 3 people's legs, or I was on the floor. I have no idea.
In the late morning hours of January 1st, 2001, Andrew left Tahoe with Ryan and some friends, arriving at the fraternity house in the mid-afternoon. The return to life at Davis was uneventful. People were tired, some hungover, and everyone was settling back into a routine. From there, Andrew resumed normal activity, spending time at the fraternity house, watching football and socializing, with no immediate indication from those around him that anything from the Tahoe trip had carried over as unusual or concerning.
We went to Andrew's frat house. All the bedrooms were upstairs. Down below in the frat house was kind of like the community room, kitchen, living spaces. And to access Andrew's frat room, you'd walk up a short stairway to the top floor, and then his room was the first room on the left. So I took a nap on the first. We probably rolled into Davis around 1 or 2 p.m. I sleep on his floor to take a nap. He's sleeping in his bed. And, we sleep for a few hours. I wake up, it's dark out, and I open my eyes, and he's on his bed, and he's looking at me when I wake up.
After a small nap in the Kappa Sigma frat house on New Year's Day, Ryan vividly remembers waking up to Andrew staring at him after a nap.
He was like staring at me, yeah. And it was weird, and it's haunting, and it's something that, I'll never forget. I opened my eyes and he's just staring at me. I was like, hey, what's up, man? And he's like, what are you thinking? Are you going to stay here tonight, or are you going to go back to Santa Cruz? And I go, I don't know. Let me think about it. And so I get up and walk down the hallway, go to the bathroom, and I'm thinking, do I want to stay here tonight? I don't know. I'm pretty tired, It's already dark out. Or do I want to, go back to Santa Cruz? And I'm like, I think I'll probably just go back. Went back to Andrew's room, and we chatted about stuff. We've kind of recapped the night. Things seemed good. And gave him a hug and got in my car, drove back to Santa Cruz.
After Ryan left, a bunch of the frat bros hung out in Andrew's room, trying to brush off boredom. They decided to take Andrew's car to go get sandwiches nearby for dinner. Towards the end of the night, a small group watched VHS tapes of Frasier together. Around 1 o'clock in the morning on January 2nd, Andrew retired to his room to go to bed. And thus begins a mysterious 60-hour gap where it becomes extremely difficult to pinpoint where Andrew Wieman was. In the early hours of that January 2nd, at least one nearby fraternity brother later reported hearing someone attempting to access a door, though no one recalled any clear disturbance or unusual activity directly tied to Andrew. In the days that followed, his bedroom door remained closed and locked, according to fraternity brothers. During the 60-hour gap, nobody from the frat house ever reported signs of music, movement, or activity inside. By January 3rd, the Kappa Sigma house manager began asking around about Andrew's whereabouts. While it wasn't typical for Andrew to leave without telling anyone, the general response from others was that Andrew was probably out with his girlfriend, perhaps soaking in the final days of the holiday break, and no one treated the situation as urgent or unusual. As time passed, though, concern gradually grew. The house manager and another individual attempted to look into Andrew's room through his dorm room window, but couldn't see inside due to the blinds being closed. There was also an attempt to call Andrew. From the time Andrew and his fraternity brothers used his car to get sandwiches on January 1st, reports indicate that Andrew's vehicle remained parked in the exact same spot. On January 4th, Andrew failed to appear for class and remained out of contact, which was unlike him. The fraternity house manager, now increasingly uneasy, went to property management to obtain a master key to enter Andrew's room. When the house manager opened Andrew's locked door, the room was dark and the lights were off. He initially saw what looked like a figure under the covers and could not immediately tell if it was a person. After only a few seconds, the house manager said, "Oh my God," realized something was wrong, and ran out of the room.
911.
Yeah, I need an ambulance over 400 Parkway Circle.
Okay, what's the problem there?
Found a guy split his wrist, or his wrists are cut.
Which apartment?
It's a big house upstairs.
Okay. Is somebody with him?
We just walked in there. I don't know how long he's been there.
Is he alive? Breathing?
Is he breathing? I don't know. Tell him to check.
On the next episode of Love and Justice, we step inside room number 12, Andrew Wieman's locked fraternity dorm room. The room where investigators found blood on the walls, a broken mirror, a knife, and so much more. What evidence was recovered from the scene? What did investigators believe it meant? And when you place every object side by side, does the room tell one complete story? Or something far more complicated?
I can't imagine somebody doing that much damage to themselves. I mean, the neck was cut in a major way. Nothing I've ever seen in 26 years in the fire service in the way of damage done by someone to himself.
Love and Justice is an official production of Magic Lamp Productions and is primarily recorded in California. This episode was executive produced and hosted by me, Kyle Olson. Supervising producer, Alexa Lopez. Producer, Lisa Visione. Edited by Cody Crabb. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and rate it 5 stars. Every single review greatly helps our exposure and helps us share Andrew's story with a larger audience. So please, rate this podcast and share it with your friends today. If you have a tip, question, or thought, please call our hotline at 209-764-5683. That's 209-764-LOVE. Until next time, thanks for listening.